Hello, and welcome to the Permission to Breathe podcast, a transformative space dedicated to providing a sanctuary where you can inhale deeply and exhale freely, embracing your grief journey unapologetically. I am your host, Dr. Tammy Isaac, here with you every Monday to offer comfort, guidance, and hope. Together we'll navigate this path, finding moments to pause, reflect, and breathe. Let's begin this journey side by side. Today's episode of Permission to Breathe is sponsored by Aurora's Grief Journey, my new children's book about navigating loss and finding comfort. Aurora's Grief Journey follows a young girl who's learning to cope with the loss of her grandfather. Through heartfelt storytelling and faithful activities, the book helps children understand their feelings and provides families with practical ways to heal together. If you're looking for a gentle resource to support a child through grief, this book is the perfect place to start. You can grab your copy today on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's continue this journey of healing together. Today, we're diving into the final installment of our holiday series with an episode titled Holiday Blues. The holidays are a season of light and joy for many, but for some, it can feel like a season of heaviness, a time when the weight of sadness seems to linger. Maybe you're not quite sure what you're feeling or why. Is it grief? Is it holiday blues? Or is it a mix of both? So in this episode, we'll explore how to recognize and understand the holiday blues, how it differs from deeper grief, and what we can do to care for ourselves during this emotional charged time. So let's take a moment together and take a deep breath and prepare to gently explore this topic. Hey guys, so before we get started, I just want to tell you guys that I have my dogs here with me. I'm recording in a different space, and one is sleeping and snoring. So if you hear that, just ignore it. And then the other one here is just licking her paw. Okay. So hopefully you don't hear it. Hopefully my mic will tune everything out, but let's go. So holiday blues. Let's start by defining holiday blues. So the holiday blues are defined as temporary feelings of anxiety, depression, sadness, and loneliness, and other types of negative emotions. And unlike grief, which is tied to a specific loss, the holidays or the holiday blues can stem from the pressures and emotional weight of the season itself. Okay. So it might feel like, low energy, sadness, anxiety, often brought on by things like the financial stress of the holidays, maybe our unrealistic expectations for the holidays, or even just the simple fact that the holidays remind us of what we wish it could be, but it isn't, right? And I will share, there were times that I would have holiday blues after. So many of you don't know, when I was 23 years old, I got married. I was married for about 2 years and divorced because of his infidelity and birthing a child into our marriage. And I got to the point where like holidays would come, because holidays were, well, let me say like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the big holiday for me. And it was always that time for family. So everybody was gathered together and their individual families coming together collectively. And it just got to the point where I'm not married, or I was divorced, and it's just me, right? It's just me every year coming. I'm the lone ranger, I guess you want to call it. And I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. And it's just me. But everybody else's family is there, their husbands, their wives, and all their children running around, and, maybe even grandchildren and great grandchildren. So, though Thanksgiving was like my favorite holiday, I'll still say that it's my favorite holiday, even though it's very different and hard and emotional for me. I still do love it, and I still do love the idea of being with family for Thanksgiving. But I just know that I would always get this heaviness after being alone, of having and of knowing that I was going to be around family, which I wanted to, but then I was going to be sad because I was going to be looking at everybody else's family running around here, and it's just me. And it just brought me sadness. And I remember one Thanksgiving, my mom usually did all the cooking, and I think this was around the time that she had cancer, if I'm not mistaken, and she was recovering, so she didn't do a lot of cooking, and I had to cook like the mac and cheese or what have you. And I cooked it, but I was at home, and everybody was calling like, "Where are you? Like, where's the mac and cheese?" I'm like, "Oh, somebody come get it," but nobody would. They was like, "No, you bring it." And I end up going to Thanksgiving a little later than normal, because I was dealing with my holiday blues, my blues of just, I didn't have anxiety, but I did have like the lack of energy. I had this sadness and this heaviness that I didn't want to be around people, almost like a seasonal depression, not where I needed medication or anything, but it was temporary, just to the season, right? Because the holiday blues are often just situational, and they tend to lift once the season has passed. So, um, that's what I was experiencing. But here's where it can get tricky. If you're also grieving, then the two can end up blending together, making it hard to really untangle or describe or experience or understand what you're actually feeling, because the two kind of collide together. So now for me, Thanksgiving is still a bit heavy, for the fact that, everybody else is together. They have their individual families that have come together collectively, and it's still just me as the Lone Ranger. But now, on top of that, I'm missing my mom, who I believe for me to be the center of Thanksgiving. And so I have a bit of both that happens, and I tend to fall into the feeling of melancholy, but when it starts about October, November, into December. And so that's something that I know that I have to be intentional to be alert and to pay attention to that, so I don't fall into a depressive state where I can't get out of or have to have medication. Now, people with a prior mental health condition can be particularly prone to holiday depression, right? So, according to the National Alliance on Mental Health, 64% of people with an existing mental illness end up reporting that the holidays make their condition worse. So many individuals who already have diagnosed mental illnesses are often affected by the holiday blues as their normal symptoms worsen during that time of year. So it's something that they often experience, but then it becomes worsen during that time of year. But even those without regular occurring mental health challenges, they too can experience holiday blues. Anyone, even those who love the season, can experience the holiday blues. The season's demands, the gatherings, the decorations, and other stressors leave many people stressed and exhausted. And you add this to the sometimes emotional aspect of special days, and it's a recipe for the holiday blues. So, how do we tell the difference between the holiday blues and grief? Grief is rooted in a specific loss, whether it's the death of a loved one, whether it's a major life change, or even the loss of what we thought this season would look like. It can feel overwhelming, persistent, and all consuming at all times. And grief it often feels very heavy, and very, very deeply personal. It can take over your thoughts, making it difficult to focus on anything else. It's also non-linear. So some days it might feel manageable, and others it can really knock you off your feet unexpectedly because it comes in waves, right? When you think about the ocean and the waves are coming, you don't know uh, what type of wave is coming. You can kind of gauge and be like, oh, here comes a big one. And then it kind of fades out before it actually hits you. And so I like to explain that grief comes in waves and we don't know what's going to hit until it actually does. Also, grief ask for acknowledgement and care. And I think this is important. We shun grief, we shun the emotions, but those emotions are coming to be acknowledged. And then we don't. And then it starts to persist and get heavier and more unbearable because at this point, from grief coming to be acknowledged and cared for, now it comes as a demand. And that's when things get weighty and overwhelming. And we can find ourselves over into, a prolonged grief. So it demands, it'll demand that we sit with it even when it feels uncomfortable, right? It just needs to be acknowledged. And if it's not acknowledged and cared for, then it will demand that you sit there and you feel the blow or the uncomfortability or the total impact and the effects of it. Either way it goes, grief is going to come. You're going to experience it. Why? Because we've allowed ourselves to love something or be emotionally connected to any place or thing or situation, right? Now, the holiday blues, on the other hand, might feel more like a lingering cloud over your head. It's there, but it's not as heavy as grief. And while the holiday blues can make us feel, really low, they're they're often really just tied to temporary factors like shorter days, the financial strain of the holiday, you know, having these high expectations of what the holiday should look like, but it doesn't end up being that way. Um, and so these factors tend to be temporary, and after the season's over, those effects lessen and dissipate. But grief is permanent in the sense that when you've lost someone, they're gone and they're not coming back, and so you have to deal with it, and so you sit with that much longer. So let's talk about how they overlap. So it's possible to experience both grief and the holiday blues at the same time, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So, for example, you might be grieving the loss of a loved one while also feeling pressure to uphold family traditions. Okay. You could feel sadness over financial strain layered with a deeper grief for life or family structure that you used to have. So if there's changes or dynamics, maybe a divorce or something like that, or maybe children have grown up and are away for the holidays and it's not the same. Gotten married, family have gotten married, children's gotten married, and now they're doing holidays with their in-laws instead of with you, right? So it's so many things that can come up. And then there's the situational triggers, like hearing a holiday song or seeing a family photo might temporarily blur the lines between seasonal sadness and the enduring weight of grief. Some of those things happen, especially when you've lost a loved one. You could hear a song, you could smell particular food that they used to cook. You could see the chair that they used to sit in, or going to the house where the person lived. I know that my oldest sister has a really hard time with having to come to my house, because this is the house that we all grew up in. And it is the place where initially my mom uh, passed away, right? Where she had her episode here, and paramedics was here and everything. And so just coming here and knowing that this is the place that represented her, that still represents her, where she would be, where this is her home, is very difficult for her, my sister, to come, because it just causes the flood of memories and emotions to come through. And so these are things that can just really trigger us, and you see how they can overlap with just the sadness, the seasonal sadness of the stress of the holidays. But then also there are things that will trigger to remind us of loved ones that we have lost, that are no longer a part of our holidays. So why is it important to know the difference? Understanding whether you're experiencing the holiday blues or grief can really help you decide what kind of care you need. And I know that a lot of times we just kind of feel our sadness and our grief, and we don't really think about what can make us feel better in a healthy way by allowing the emotions to be acknowledged and cared for. We would rather just push them away and do other things that'll put them on the back burner. But that doesn't cause them to be cared for and acknowledged, and it doesn't help you cope. It just makes things worse. So it's important for us to identify what we're experiencing, what we're going. Let me give you this example. I work in healthcare. It's important to know exactly what your symptoms are suggesting to the doctors, right? Because they need to know exactly what's happening to you, so that they can put in place what I call the proper plan of care to treat the illness that you are experiencing. If we just guess at what we think is happening, then you could get some medication that does not work or cause healing to come, and you still be dealing with that situation, right? So it's important that we know what exactly we're feeling and what we are experiencing as it relates to our emotions with grief, or is this a seasonal sadness thing that I'm going through? So if it's the holiday blues, small adjustments might just help. You might need more sunlight, because this daylight savings thing, less time on social media. You might need to set some boundaries for your holiday obligations. You need to determine what's healthy for you and put those things in place, which means that I need to be prepared. I need to take some time and make plans for what I'm going to do, make preparation so that I can have some healthy boundaries put in place, so that I can be able to cope with this holiday blues. And if it's grief, it's important to, like I said earlier, honor your feelings, acknowledge them, and care for them. Give yourself the space that you need, and seek support. That's a big one. Seek support. You need to let somebody know, whether it's through a trusted friend, a support group, or even a therapist. You need to let them know how you're feeling. This is really tough. I'm having a hard time. I thought I was going to make it, but now I'm feeling like I don't want to. Just sharing that information with somebody else is helpful to release those thoughts, and out into the atmosphere is a weight that you are lifting off of yourselves. And then you may find that maybe I can go just for a little bit. Maybe I could video call in, maybe I could just make a phone call or something, whatever it is. Seek support, let people know what you're going through, and allow them the permission to support you where you are. And make sure these are people that are safe spaces for you. So both of whether it's grief or holiday blues, they both deserve compassion. They both deserve grace. I also want you to know that your grief may require some additional support, right? It may require, some long-term strategies to help you cope through your loss, and, your holiday blues, which is often temporary, will shift in as the season approaches, or as the seasons die down and we move into a different season. That is just temporary, right? But if you're dealing with your grief, then you may need some long-term support to help you heal through the process, to cope, to be able to continue to live life successfully and go through all of the seasons that life will bring you into. So that's something to think about. And being in this space of grief, I run into people and talk to people at various conferences, panels, and talks that they look at grief as just something that happens and doesn't need the attention or the support. And so they just kind of lallygag through and think that it's not important, or don't understand how important it is. Let me say that they don't understand how important it is and how much grief affects the totality of who we are in so many ways, that we don't seek help or support. And then we think it's some type of weakness to be able to reach out to somebody else and ask for support and help, and let people know that we really need some help through this, right? So remember, whether you're facing grief or the holiday blues, or even both of them, your feelings are very much valid. And there's no shame in seeking help or support, okay? Recognizing the difference is going to be your first step into understanding what your heart and mind needs in this season. Are you grieving and feel like you're struggling alone? You don't have to walk this path by yourself. Book a virtual session with Dr. Tammy Isaac at Breathe Grief Counseling Center. Visit us online at www.breathegriefcounselingcenter.com. Dr. Isaac will help you put your emotions into words. She'll help you reduce the feeling of isolation. She'll help you understand that everyone grieves differently, and also help you prevent unhealthy coping mechanisms. Take control of your life with world-class counseling sessions today with Dr. Tammy Isaac. Let's talk about some strategies that can help during this season. First, you want to give yourself permission to feel. Sometimes we spend so much energy trying to push away our sadness or pretend that we're okay that we end up feeling worse. And instead, I want to suggest that you let yourself name your emotions. And I think a lot of times we don't do a good job of explaining how we feel, because we don't know how we feel, because we don't sit with the emotions, and we don't sit with the emotions because it's uncomfortable, right? So if you're sad, you just need to say it. If you're tired, say that too. Just acknowledging what you're feeling is really the first step toward working through what you're experiencing at the time. Now, another helpful tool is you setting realistic expectations. And I mentioned that as well earlier. So the holidays often come with a lot of shoulds. Okay. We feel like we should be happy. We should attend every event, or we should keep every tradition alive. But when we're struggling, it's absolutely okay to say no. It's okay to simplify what your holiday season is going to look like. You don't have to be extravagant, and be consistent the way things were before you're experiencing what you're experiencing now. Now, also, remember, the most important thing is your well being, not meeting someone else's expectations. And that includes your expectations as well. Okay. So now let's talk about self care. And this does not mean like bubble baths and spa days, though that also could help. And, if you want to, you can go for it. That very much could be it. But really, self care can be as simple as taking a walk outside, maybe eating something that's nourishing to your body, or even just taking a moment to breathe deeply. Breathing is so automatic that, or autonomic, that we even know that we're doing it. But if we're intentional about breathing, and I have an episode on here about breathing that goes a little bit more in detail, just breathing helps clear our mind and our thoughts, if we're intentional about doing that. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, you should really reach out to someone who can support you, someone who's a safe space for you, like a friend or a family member, or even if you're a therapist. And if you don't have one, you could find one, right? So, for those of us who may be experiencing holiday blues specifically, it might be helpful to focus on like small ways to kind of brighten or uplift your mood. So doing that, you can spend time in natural light, or using a light therapy lamp if, your shorter days are affecting you. And I actually bought me a light therapy lamp. I used it the other day for the first time. And I bought it actually listening to a neuroscientist talk about, mood changes in the brain and things that help. And so I bought one because I wanted to see how it would affect me during this season. And so I've only used it once, so I'm going to continue to use it. But um, he did share that is helpful during this time of holiday blues, or seasonal depression, especially with the time changing and getting darker so sooner. Another thing you want to think about is move your body, whether it's stretching or dancing, or just a gentle walk down the park or something. These little actions might not solve everything, but they can definitely help ease the weight of your sadness. Okay, so the lesser of the heaviness is always helpful to help keep you going. And for those of us who are navigating grief, we just have to remind ourselves that it is absolutely okay to honor our loss, and in whatever ways that we feel right to us during this season. Okay. And whether that means creating a new tradition, we lighten a candle in someone's memory, or even stepping away just for the holidays, all together. Just trust yourself to do what you need to do in that moment. And our share, I just thought about, my mom died in March of 2016. And then 2 months later was Mother's Day. And I was working in full-time ministry at a church, and I was not prepared to go to church and even act out in the function of my role as associate pastor for Mother's Days. I was not ready for that. I was not ready to see other people and their mothers. I was not ready for them, people to be walking around talking about Happy Mother's Day. I was not ready for people to even, say Happy Mother's Day to me. And I'm not even a mother. So I'm already deal with the fact that I'm not a mother, right? I was not prepared for that. And so I had let my senior pastor know, hey, I am going to Puerto Rico for the weekend. I will not be here. And he didn't understand. He was like, oh, but the people need you. And I was like, but I need me. And I need time to be able to get away and rest and do something different than be at church, because then Mother's Day, my mom was not going to be there. And so I think, and which was a very, very helpful thing for me at that time. Even as I'm thinking back on it, it was so helpful and mind clearing and so peaceful for me. And I spent that weekend. I cried, and the staff knew, why I was there, and they were so kind to me. They brought gifts to my room and left them there. They brought flowers and card from the whole team. The hotel staff signed. They brought fruits and trays and all kinds of stuff because they knew I had lost my mom and I was just there for a getaway. Um, and so it was really a blessing. I ended up meeting somebody on that trip, another lady who had lost her child and had recently lost her child. And they too, her and husband too, both came to Puerto Rico to get away, to not have to be in the limelight of the joy of other people experiencing mother-daughter experiences. And so I got to meet them and share with them. And so it was a really blessed thing for me. And even as I'm thinking about and talking about it now, I feel emotional about it. It was a very healing thing that I needed to do, and I'm grateful to have had that time. And I share that because I want you to know that if you have to step away for the holidays, that is a-okay. If you just need space altogether, it is okay. But I do want to say, let somebody know what you're doing, where you're going. Have somebody that you trust who's a safe space, so that they know exactly what you are experiencing, what you're doing, where you're stepping away to, and what your intentions are for stepping away. Now, before we close, I want to address something important. When to seek professional help. If you're finding that your feelings of sadness or grief are becoming overwhelming, or if they're interfering with your ability to function day to day, it's important to reach out for support, okay? And no, there is no shame in asking for help. In fact, it's one of the most resilient things that you can do for yourself. Okay. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to remind you that whether you're facing holiday blues or grief or a mix of both, know that you're not alone and you're not the only person having these emotions. This season might feel heavy, but in the midst of that, there is space for moments of hope, resilience, and peace. So I want to thank you for joining me for this conversation on the holiday blues and grief. I hope you found something here to help you navigate the season with a little more ease. Next time, we'll return with more stories and insight to support you on your journey. But until then, be gentle with yourself. Grant yourself grace. Breathe deeply in and out. And know that wherever you are held in love and you have permission to breathe. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Permission to Breathe podcast. I hope today created space for you to breathe and find peace on your journey. I invite you to join me again next Monday for another episode as we continue to navigate this path together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share the podcast. Until next time, take care and keep breathing unapologetically.